Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're jumping straight into Joshua chapter 17.
Right. This one's really interesting.
It is. It's all about dividing up the land, specifically for the tribe of Manasseh, but it's more than just lines on a map.
Definitely. We see some unique challenges, family dynamics, inheritance issues.
And even some practical problems like these iron chariots that pop up.
Yeah, that's a fascinating detail. So the goal is really to unpack what's going on with Manasseh's territory here.
Exactly. It's about inheritance, but also the messy reality of settling down. So let's start with Manasseh. Why the focus on them?
Well, Manasseh was Joseph's firstborn, so, his tribe is expected to get a pretty substantial piece of the inheritance pie.
Okay, makes sense. But it's not all in one place, is it?
No, not at all. The text makes a distinction right away. It talks about Machir, who was Manasseh's
A
firstborn.
Machir, right.
His descendants, the Machirites, or Gileadites as they're called, actually got their land east of the Jordan River, Gilead and Bashan.
East. Why over there, away from the main settlement area?
The text gives a reason. It says it's because they were great soldiers.
Oh, wow. So their military skill earned them that territory.
Seems like it. It suggests the distribution wasn't just based on, family trees. Military contribution mattered. They were fighters, and they got land across the Jordan.
That's a really key point. Okay, so the soldiers are east. What about the rest of the tribe?
The rest of Manasseh's clans, the text lists them. Abiezer, Helek, Azriel, Shechem, Hefer, and Shemitah. They received their land west of the Jordan.
Okay, so within Canaan proper, alongside the other tribe.
Exactly, and this is where we get that really remarkable story about inheritance.
Right, you mentioned an unexpected twist. This involves one of those Western clans.
It does. It focuses on a man named Zelophehad. He was from the clan of Hefer.
Zelophehad. What was unusual about him?
Well, the crucial thing is he didn't have any sons, only daughters.
In that society, that would be the problem for inheritance, wouldn't it?
A huge problem, typically. But his daughters, their names are listed carefully. Mala, Noah, Hogla, Milcah, and Kirzah. They didn't just accept that.
What did they do?
They did something pretty bold. They went directly to the leadership. Eleazar the priest, Joshua himself, and the other leaders. Right at the entrance to the tent of meeting.
Wow. Straight to the top. That must have taken some courage.
Absolutely. And they didn't just plead for mercy. They had a solid argument.
What was their case?
They essentially said, "The Lord commanded Moses to give us an inheritance among our brothers." They were referencing a prior ruling, a divine command.
So they weren't just asking, they were claiming a right based on God's word through Moses.
Exactly. They argued their father's lineage shouldn't just disappear because there were no male heirs.
And how did Joshua and the leadership react to that?
Well, the text says Joshua granted their request. He gave them an inheritance right alongside their male relatives, their father's brothers,
And the real...
according to the Lord's command. It's explicitly stated this was a huge deal. It basically set a legal precedent, showing that daughters could inherit land under specific circumstances based on divine instruction.
That's incredible. So this case influenced the law itself. What did this mean practically for Manasseh's land west of the Jordan?
It had a direct impact. Because these 5 daughters each got a share, the total number of tracts or portions Manasseh received west of the Jordan is listed as 10.
10 tracts.
Yes, and the text connects that number specifically to the daughters receiving land among the sons. Their successful appeal literally changed how the territory was divided.
Amazing. Their actions drew lines on the map. Okay, so 10 tracts west of the Jordan. Can we get a sense of where this land was? The descriptions can be a bit dense.
Yeah, they can be tricky to visualize.
Yeah.
The text says the boundary started up near Asher in the north.
Okay, near Asher.
And it ran south towards Mikmethath, which is east of Shechem.
Got it. North to south towards Shechem.
Then it continues south, passing into Tappuah. But here's one of those little complexities.
Uh-oh.
The people at Tappuah were Manasseh's, but the town of Tappuah itself belonged to Ephraim.
So an Ephraimite town surrounded by Manasseh's land.
Seems like it. Could get confusing, right?
Definitely sounds like potential for disputes down the line. Where next?
The boundary keeps going south to the Cana Ravine. And another nuance here.
Okay.
There were towns belonging to Ephraim within Manasseh's territory in that area, but the actual dividing line was the north side of the ravine.
So the line itself was north of the ravine, even if some Ephraimite towns were sprinkled around.
That's how it reads.
Yeah.
And finally, the boundary reached the Mediterranean Sea to the west.
Okay, let me try to simplify. Broadly speaking, for Joseph's tribes west of the Jordan, Manasseh is north of this Kana ravine line, and Ephraim is south.
Yeah, that's the basic north-south division for their main territories.
And Manasseh's other borders west of the Jordan.
West was the sea, north, as we said, was Asher, and on the east, it bordered the tribe of Issachar.
Okay. But then there's another list of towns, isn't there? Bethshan, Iblim, Megiddo.
Right. Dor, Endor, Tanakh are in there too. And the text says these belong to Manasseh.
But there's always a but, it seems.
But they were located within the territories assigned to Issachar and Asher.
So Manasseh had, like, exclaves, pockets of territory inside their neighbor's land.
Exactly. It shows the division wasn't neat blocks. Manasseh had these specific towns, maybe strategically important ones, scattered geographically within Issachar and Asher.
That raises immediate questions. How do you control towns inside someone else's area, especially when those towns probably weren't empty?
You've hit the nail on the head. This is exactly where the story pivots from the plan to the reality. The text states very clearly, the Manassites were not able to occupy these towns
They couldn't take them. Why not?
because the Canaanites already living there were determined to live in that region. They weren't just going to pack up and leave. There was resistance.
So the conquest wasn't complete in those specific spots. What happened then? Did they just give up on those towns?
Not exactly. The text says that later, as the Israelites grew stronger, they didn't drive the Canaanites out completely from those towns.
No.
No, but they subjected them to forced labor.
Ah, so they asserted dominance, made them work, but let them stay.
That seems to be the picture. A sort of partial control, maybe a pragmatic compromise, rather than the full expulsion commanded elsewhere.
That's interesting. A different outcome on the ground. And this difficulty, this incomplete possession, seems to lead to another issue, a complaint.
It does. A complaint comes from the people of Joseph.
Meaning both Ephraim and Manasseh together.
Yes, the text clarifies it's both tribes. They come to Joshua with a grievance.
What was their problem? What were they complaining about?
Their argument was basically, hey, why did we only get one allotment? We're a huge group, the Lord has blessed us, we have lots of people, and this land isn't enough for us.
So they felt shortchanged given their numbers.
Pretty much. We're numerous, blessed by God, we need more space.
How did Joshua respond initially? Did he just give them more land?
No, his first response is more like a challenge. He picks up on their claim of being numerous.
Okay.
He says, basically, all right, if you're so numerous and the hill country you have isn't enough, then go make more land for yourselves.
Make more land!
How? Go up into the forest, he tells them. Clear the trees in the areas where the parasites and rephets live and settle there. He's putting the responsibility back on them to expand into less developed, forested hill country.
Clear a forest. That sounds like hard work.
Definitely. But it's a practical suggestion. But the tribes of Joseph weren't quite satisfied with that. They came back with a specific, very real obstacle.
And this is where the chariots come in.
This is exactly it. They reply to Joshua, the hill country is not enough for us,
Yeah.
reiterating their point, but then they add the kicker. And all the Canaanites who live in the plain have iron chariots.
Iron chariots, not bronze, iron. That's a big deal technologically back then,
A
right?
huge deal. Iron weapons, iron fittings on chariots, it represented superior military tech. And chariots were most effective on flat ground, like plains and valleys.
And they mention specific places.
Yes, they pinpoint those in Beth-shan and its settlements and those in the Valley of Jezreel. Key strategic locations, especially the Jezreel Valley, a major flat, fertile plain.
So their complaint isn't just, we want more land. It's, the extra land you're pointing us to is hard work. And the best land, the flat land we need, is defended by enemies with superior military hardware.
Precisely. It's a very specific, tangible military challenge. These aren't just random inhabitants. They're populations in strategic valleys equipped with the ancient equivalent of tanks. It gives real insight into the difficulties they faced.
That totally changes the dynamic of their complaint. It's not just numbers, it's technology and terrain. How does Joshua respond now, faced with the iron chariot problem?
His final response is really powerful. He addresses the whole house of Joseph, Ephraim, and Manasseh together.
And what does he say?
First, he affirms their strength. He says, you are numerous and very powerful. He validates their own assessment of their size and potential.
So he acknowledges their strength first.
Yes, he doesn't dismiss them. Then he confirms the land allocation. You will have not only one allotment, but the forested hill country as well. So yes, you get that extra hill country.
And the instruction is still to clear it.
Still the same instruction. Clear it, and its farthest limits will be yours. Go make it yours. But then he directly confronts the issue they raised,
The chariots.
the chariots and the strength of the Canaanites. His final words are a charge, a command combined with encouragement.
What's the final command?
He says, look, though the Canaanites have iron chariots, and though they are strong, you can drive them out.
Wow. So he acknowledges the threat, the iron chariots, their strength. He doesn't minimize it.
Not at all. He names it explicitly.
Hmm.
But he immediately follows it up with the assertion of their ability to overcome it. It's not, this is too hard. It's, yes, it's hard, but you are strong enough to do it.
It reframes the whole thing. The obstacle is real, but their power is sufficient.
Exactly. It's a call to courage and action, connecting their God-given numbers and power directly to the task of defeating this advanced opposition. Face the reality, trust your strength, and go take your inheritance.
What a chapter. This deep dive into Joshua 17, it's really shown us so much.
Well-
We saw Manasseh's land being divided, that split east and west.
Yeah, and that incredible story of Zelophehad's daughters actually changing the map through their inheritance claim.
Absolutely. Then the complicated boundaries, the towns inside other tribes' areas, and that stark reality checked the Canaanites who were determined to stay.
Leading to that situation of forced labor instead of complete conquest in some places.
And then the complaint from Joseph's tribes feeling squeezed, leading up to that very specific, very modern-sounding problem. The enemy has better technology, these iron chariots.
It makes the whole process of settlement feel incredibly real, full of legal complexities, border disputes, and serious military hurdles.
It really does. And thinking about that final exchange, it leaves you with something powerful, doesn't it?
Mm.
The people point to this major obstacle, iron chariots. They're strong. It's a valid fear, a real challenge.
You can almost hear the anxiety.
But Joshua's response isn't to find an easier path. He affirms their strength and says essentially, yes, they have chariots, yes, they are strong, but you are also strong and you can overcome them. It makes you wonder, doesn't it? When we face things that seem overwhelming, opponents that seem stronger, obstacles that look technologically superior, how do we react? Do we focus only on the iron chariots? Or do we, like Joshua challenged them, also acknowledge our own God-given strength and potential to overcome, even when it looks tough? It's an ancient perspective on facing down powerful opposition.